Hi everybody, my name is Nicole and I'm a senior biology major at Keuka College. I'm sure we've all heard about the controversies of whether or not marine mammals should be kept in captivity in places like SeaWorld. Today we're going to go over the difference between the lives of orca whales in captivity and those in the wild.
Imagine if somebody took you out of your neighborhood and community and stuck you in your house. And then from there they shut you in your closet where you wouldn't have much stimulation or interactions with others. How do you think you would feel? It would probably make you go a little crazy, don't you think? To test this hypothesis, I put my roommate Emma in our closet and left her there without her phone or any interactions with other people.
Okay, Emma, come here. Drop your phone. Come here, you're going in the closet.
I don't want to go in the closet.
You're going in the closet.
I don't want to go in the closet. I don't want to go in the closet.
Okay, you need to sit here and tell me when you can't sit here any longer, okay?
Okay. Nicole, can I come out?
Nicole, get me out of here.
What's wrong?
You expect me to spend 3 hours in here and I can't even imagine doing that, let alone my whole life.
Now, if Emma couldn't last 3 hours in a closet with little to no stimulation, how do we think an orca whale feels when it's taken out of the wide open ocean and put into tanks that are equivalent to a closet, like the ones in SeaWorld? In the wild, the orca whale is the most broadly distributed mammal other than humans in the world. They have the ability to withstand a wide range of temperatures. Although they prefer colder waters like the Atlantic and the North Atlantic, they can be found all the way towards the equator. Each day, the orca whale can swim up to 100 miles, and they typically dive to depths of 100 feet to 500 feet. Their lifespan is similar to humans in that males can live for about 60 to 70 years, while females live to about 80 or 100 years old. Living in a tank at SeaWorld poses some limitations to the typical lifestyle of an orca whale. The average length of a SeaWorld tank is only about 350 feet long, or about 0.7 miles, and each tank is only about 40 feet in depth. Due to this, the orcas typically swim in one direction and are normally found at the top of the tank, as opposed to in the wild where they spend a majority of their time submerged underwater. On average, male orca whales in captivity only live about 17 years, while females only live about 27 years. This cuts their life down by about 60 years. While in captivity, orca whales tend to exhibit zoochosis, which is a stereotypical behavior of animals in captivity. They tend to rock and sway repeatedly and do repetitive activity that has no function. The Shamu shows put on by SeaWorld each and every day also challenges the typical behavior of an orca whale. Prior to 2012, when OSHA banned SeaWorld trainers from interacting without barriers in between them with the whales, trainers would often ride on the backs of whales or be pushed forward on their noses, which is an unnatural behavior. Even after the ban was placed, the whales are still forced to do unnatural acts like flipping upside down or sliding out onto slide outs where there's little water buoyancy to help them withstand their own weight. Orca whales are extremely intelligent and social animals. In the wild, they live in very tight-knit family units called pods. Each pod consists of about 5 to 30 whales. These pods include moms, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, and even sometimes grandparents. Each pod has its own culture and it's thought to have their own language and family dynamics. The pods are a hierarchy system, each led by a dominant female. Calves typically remain in the same pod for the rest of their lives. The groups of whales that live together in captivity are typically artificial pods. The whales are transferred from park to park based on decisions made by SeaWorld's management rather than family relations. Calves are often separated from the mother within the first 5 years after birth. The transfer from one park to another is potentially hazardous to the calf, and both mother and baby call for each other after being separated.
They were inseparable. When they separated Kasaka and Takara, it was to take Takara to Florida. Once Takara had already been stretchered out of the pool, put on the truck, driven to the airport, Kasaka continued to make vocals that had never been heard before. They brought in the senior research scientist to analyze the vocals. They were long-range vocals. She was trying something that no one had even heard before, looking for Takara. That's heartbreaking. How can anyone look at that and think that that is morally acceptable? It's not. It is not okay.
Another consequence of putting together orcas that are not members of the same family is an increase in aggression. Each group of whales have their own mechanisms of communication. Interfering with these can build up stress and frustration for the whales and cause them to lash out at each other. In the wild, if tensions build between the whales, they have hundreds of miles to get away from one another. But in captivity, aggression is inevitable. Whales will often rake each other with their teeth, leaving behind scrapes and scars along each other's bodies. They may also bite each other and cause bleeding. The aggression can carry over to the orcas' interactions with their trainers as well. There have been numerous incidents of orcas injuring and toying with their trainers. For example, this trainer was repeatedly pulled under the water for up to a minute at a time before the whale eventually let go of his foot after a 15-minute ordeal. Another instance, which is potentially one of the most notorious incidents at SeaWorld, was the death of trainer Don Brancheau, who was killed by Tilikum, a 12,000-pound killer whale who had previously killed 2 other trainers. In captivity, orca whales often face a number of different illnesses. The whales often break their teeth biting on the steel gates, which eventually leads to infections. When this occurs, the SeaWorld staff drills holes into their teeth without any anesthetic. In 2010, one whale died from bacterial infection after having 5 teeth drilled and 4 pulled. She was the 4th orca to die at SeaWorld within 4 months. Fungal infections are also a common case in most captive whales. The orcas are given antibiotics regularly, so antibiotic-resistant strains arise and can infect the whales and leave the staff with no way to help. West Nile virus has also claimed the lives of at least 2 orcas at SeaWorld because of the abundant stagnant water providing an ideal home for the mosquito larvae. In the wild, there have been no known cases of orcas contracting the West Nile virus. The biggest killer of orcas in captivity is pneumonia, killing at least 9 whales at SeaWorld alone. SeaWorld's main goal when opening was to increase awareness for conservation and educate people on these beautiful marine animals. This is a noble cause, but have they been successful? Overall, over 50 orcas have died at SeaWorld since opening in 1959. Across the country, thousands of people have joined the Empty the Tanks movement. This movement is aimed to finding a more humane way to educate the public on marine mammals. By rehabilitating the orcas young enough to adjust to life in the wild and allowing those who are older to live out the rest of their lives in open water pens. The goal is to educate the public about the whales while observing them in their natural habitats rather than in a show. The phrase, put yourself in their shoes, doesn't only have to apply to other humans, it can apply to all walks of life. So before you plan your next trip to SeaWorld, put yourself in their shoes, or in this case, their flippers, and try the closet test. Could you make it 3 hours in your own closet? If not, consider booking a trip to go whale watching instead and join the Empty the Tanks movement.